Today on the Forgiven Nutritionist podcast, I'm talking with Linda Stevens. Her primary focus is working with midlife women over 40 or 50 and beyond to help them achieve confidence, exude sexiness, and feel comfortable in their own skin. Her motto is midlife should be the bridge to your new life. Linda holds a master's degree in nutrition, competed as an IFBB figure pro, and is an NASM certified personal trainer. Linda writes for Livestrong.com, Darien Magazine, Muscle and Fitness Hers, Oxygen Magazine, and has contributed to Strong Magazine. She also has her own health and wellness channel on muscleandfitness.com. Here's a clip from today's show.
For women, our muscle mass is so important because that's what's going to carry us through life. And I like to always remind people, you see elderly people and they're either hunched over or they're on a walker or someone's helping them. And, at that point, it's hard. Obviously, they're probably not going to make any changes at that point. But while we're here in this 40, 50, 60 something space, we can be doing weight training to keep those legs strong, because those legs are going to carry us, and keeps our bones strong also, so that as we age, we have less issues with osteoporosis, we have less sarcopenia, which is muscle wasting disease, but that we can hold ourselves upright and walk and be 80 something, and maybe you're getting down on the floor with grandkids, or you can still get down and put your shoes on. The little things that we don't think about now that could become an issue later on if we're not moving and strength training and just keeping your hips strong, your legs, quads, hamstrings, glutes. You need that to hold you up. So I am a huge advocate of getting women into the gym and lifting. And
hey everyone, just a quick break to show some gratitude to our sponsors and give you some special deals. BrainMD nutraceuticals are high-quality supplements specifically designed to support and enhance brain health. Developed by Dr. Daniel Amen and his team of experts, these supplements use carefully selected ingredients backed by scientific research to promote cognitive function, mood stability, and overall mental wellness. BrainMD's commitment to purity and efficacy assures that their supplements provide targeted nutrition for the optimal brain performance and long-term brain health. Be sure to click my link in the show notes. Thank you again so much for joining us today, Linda. Yeah, so why don't you tell my listeners a little bit about yourself and how you ended up doing what you're doing, and maybe a little bit about what additional you like to do other than nutrition.
Absolutely. I started my professional career before children working on Wall Street. I worked in equity sales and trading for large institutions, so that was fun. I did that for a while. And then I had children in my mid-30s. I had my son first and then my daughter. And I didn't want to go back to that life because it's just so demanding, and I didn't want to commute into New York City anymore, being a new mom. So I always worked out. I've always taken care of myself. I've always been an athlete. When I was a kid, I ice skated and played basketball. And a friend of mine who owns corporate gyms here in Southern Connecticut, I'm in the Stamford, Norwalk area, she said, get your personal training certification. You can come and teach some lunchtime classes for me. And, if people want to personal train, you can do something like that. Since you like to work out, why don't you make some money at it? So I thought about it, and I did. I went and got my NASM certification and started teaching classes and training clients. And then people would ask me to help them with their nutrition. They wanted to lose weight. And I decided that I wanted to go back to school and get my master's degree in nutrition, which is what I did at 40. I was about 42, graduated around 44, 45. And I really wanted to differentiate myself. I love personal training. I love working with clients in the gym. I still have a few clients I work with in the gym, but nutrition is a passion of mine. It really shapes who we are, how we feel every day, how we age, how we sleep. I mean, everything we do, right? Everything that you put in is going to yield results, whether they're positive or negative. And that just really got me more excited than the PT part of it. And then it sort of just developed on its own. I started working with competitors because I spent a lot of time in the NPC and the IFBB in my 40s and my early 50s. But once I started hitting perimenopause and those symptoms, I decided that I really wanted to learn more about that because I want to feel as great as I can as the years pass. I want to be one of those grandmas, 85, still doing deadlifts and squatting that you see on social media. I want to be one of those grandmas someday. But I really wanted to learn how to take better care of myself. And as I spoke to more and more women that were in their 40s and 50s and 60s and even 70s, I discovered that a lot of women are really struggling with some of these symptoms. And it's not just in that 40 and 50 time frame either. It really can be even after that, because it's not as if you go through menopause. It's like, oh, you're done, no problem. Some of these symptoms still linger on as the years pass. And it can cause a lot of health problems with bone density, cardiovascular health, brain health. And I don't want to end up that way. And I want to really teach other women not to end up that way. And they don't have to. They just need the right information. And unfortunately, our doctors maybe don't have the time to really talk to female menopausal, perimenopausal patients about this stuff. Sometimes it's easier to just treat the symptom, where I want to help them really understand the problem and then know how to fix it without having to use a pharmaceutical.
And yeah, food can definitely make a huge difference in this time of your life. And on a recent podcast episode, I was just talking with somebody else that how men have to go through their own form of menopause called andropause, and which is a real thing. And of course, they have very different symptoms than we do, but a lot of them can be very similar. And, we have similar hormone adjustments as well. And testosterone for them is just as important as it is for us. But of course, it affects them differently. And so, yeah, aging is definitely differently. And which is it's an interesting time in our lives, isn't it? And there's such great information. I'm glad I belong to this group age category that I'm in now.
It is. And there's so much great information. I belong to a group called A4M. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's the American Academy of Anti-Aging. And they have two big conferences, one in Florida in the spring, and then the big one is in Las Vegas every December, which I just got back from right before Christmas. And it was great because Dan Buettner, I think that's how you pronounce the Blue Zones. I'm sure you've seen that. Everyone's talking about the Blue Zones. But he was one of the keynotes, and he spoke, and it was very insightful. And we also had Dr. Oz there who spoke also. And it's nice to have access to doctors within this A4M that are cutting edge anti-aging docs that are willing to discuss, hormone replacement therapy, not, for women and for men, and how they debunk a lot of the myths that we've been told that it causes cancer and TRT can cause heart attacks in men. And, it's nice to be able to get really good information that's research, that's science-backed from MDs that have been studying this. So it's important. You're right. It's an important time, and we have access to so much information.
Yeah, and it's when I went back to school for the first time, when I started, I was 49, and then recently I had signed up and just finished a course again to become board certified, and I'm now 51. And so this is a great time in our lives because we have so much information at our fingertips. Unfortunately, we have so much bad information as well. But there's so much good information right at our fingertips. And I definitely think it's a blessing that we're in this time of our lives right now, for sure.
I think it's great to be a woman in your 50s because, I love it because it's so great because you know what you want to do. You know the things that you don't want to do anymore. You're not, when we were younger, remember being in your 20s and 30s and you do stuff for your friends, or if someone asked you to do something, you'd be like, I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. But then when you get into your 40s, you start to get that mindset of like, I'm not doing stuff I don't want to do anymore. And then by the time you really arrive in your 50s, you're like, I am absolutely not doing anything that I don't want to do. And it's nice as a woman because you really know who you are. And I love this time period. But what I don't like to hear from women sometimes is they'll say things, if they have aches and pains, they'll say, this is just my lot in life. I guess I'm just getting old. I guess my shoulders shouldn't be bothering me, or my back should, or my knees, or I can't do this, I can't do that. And, I don't like that. I don't like to hear those things because we should be able to move and feel the way we want to. We just need to understand how the foods that we eat, or the alcohol that we consume, or the poor sleep that we're getting really affects how we feel every day.
Yeah, I hear you. And I can't help but remember over the last couple years ago, I used to have rheumatoid arthritis, and I was finally diagnosed. And I thought, oh, that's a shame. I got rheumatoid arthritis. And I kind of thought, too, that was my lot in life. And I thought, oh, it's part of getting older, and I'm just one of those people. And I really had no idea that the things I was doing was contributing to all of those issues. And because again, you hear rheumatoid arthritis, it's an autoimmune condition, and you think, oh, you're stuck with it. But no, once I removed all the things that were contributing to all those issues, it was a dramatic 180 shift. And I'm not going to say that diet and lifestyle will completely reverse every condition, but I will say, I think personally, it's going to improve every condition, if not reverse. Again, I don't think it's depending what the condition is and what kind of toxins you have. But man, diet and lifestyle can make such a huge difference, especially when you do the diet and lifestyle together. And that definitely includes exercise in there.
Absolutely. A lot of the smoothies and the prepared green drinks and a lot of the things that people see, in being a nutritionist, people will say, can I drink kombucha or other things that they buy at a smoothie shop? And, my first answer is usually no, because I know that it probably has a fair amount of sugar in it. So I like to teach my clients how to look at labels and really disseminate like where are the key things that you should be looking at, your protein, carbohydrates, fat, sugar, and those numbers, like really dial in on those. And then the list of ingredients, like if there's a lot of ingredients, you got to train your eye to go look for the high fructose corn syrup or corn syrup. There's just so many different ways that they list sugar, or like people will say, they'll see organic cane sugar or something. I'm like, that's great that it's organic, but it's still sugar and it's still doing the same thing when it goes into your body, whether it's a teaspoon of table sugar or it's organic sugar or it's honey or maple syrup. I mean, at the end of the day, it's how much you're consuming of that stuff all day long, and it's in everything. I mean, high fructose corn syrup lurks in crackers and cookies and chips and sauces. And I was trying to find pickle relish the other day, and every brand has high fructose corn syrup in it. Every single brand. So I had to go to Whole Foods, and they had a brand without high fructose corn syrup, and it was theirs. But just something like that, pickles. Pickles are pretty. They should be easy to consume. They taste good. They're pretty low calorie, but they've got a lot of stuff in the liquid that they float in. So you have to really look at labels.
Yeah, and that's another thing I was just talking with my clients with recently, because they were thinking they were doing something really good for themselves by eating nuts. But when you actually look at the list of ingredients, you find out that it was roasted in peanut oil or soybean oil or canola oil. And that does not do your arteries or your body or anything good to have those things in it. So you definitely want to look at the list of ingredients. That's what I tell my clients. First and foremost, look at the list of ingredients, then look at the ingredient label because if it's got real foods in it, that's going to make a big difference.
It's true, because people will they'll consume these things all day long every day, and then they don't realize that all those inflammatory oils are really starting to pile up in their system. And having rheumatoid arthritis, I mean, that's one of the worst things you can do for your joints, because that's causing all that inflammation. So yeah, that's the other thing too, is I never understood that. I'm like, if I just want to buy roasted almonds, why do they have to have, soybean oil or corn oil or what, they put canola oil or anything else? I'm like, I just trying to find even almond milk now. Like I did a deep dive on almond milk, because yes, everyone's like, almond milk over regular cow's milk is so much better for you. But then when you look at the ingredients, it's all gums and fillers and thickeners and all these things. So now there are a few brands out there. There's Malk, there's Four Trees or Four Leaves brand, but now Califia Farms does make one that's just 3 ingredients. It's almonds, water, and sea salt. So of course it costs more, but the thing it's better because that all those fillers and thickeners are just going to mess with your gut over time. And then cause more inflammation. So it's things you might think are really good for you still aren't.
Since we're talking about nutrition and the list of ingredients and everything, what dietary changes do you think can really help manage some symptoms of aging, such as energy levels, change in metabolism? I think especially metabolism, because when you get to our age, that's one of the biggest things that changes.
I would say primarily, and I know this is kind of a big buzzword now, though, is making sure most women in our age demographic are not consuming enough protein. And I talk to them every day when I do a consult with someone and I have them take me through a day of what their eating is like. And, sometimes it's the one egg and a piece of toast, or sometimes it's the coffee and the banana at breakfast, and maybe it's some yogurt later on in the day. And, they don't eat consistently. And that is so important because every cell in our body needs protein. So women need to really up their protein levels. And then also we don't absorb our nutrients the way we used to when we were younger. So now, we've got to make sure that we're really mindful about getting enough protein, getting enough fiber through greens and vegetables. I do love the idea of using the greens powder if someone is not getting enough fiber during the day, because sometimes I'll do that. I'll run around all day and I'm like, God, I only had like one salad today. So, I'll make some greens powder and drink that, but at least I know it's a good fill in the blank. Like a multivitamin is nice because a multivitamin will fill in the blanks that maybe you missed during the day. But, really making sure you're giving your body good fruits and vegetables, protein, good fats too, because our joints need that. You got to stay lubricated. It's almost like I use the Tin Man analogy from The Wizard of Oz. The Tin Man, until he did his oil can in his shoulders and his hips, and then he was movable, right? But I mean, if we're not taking in enough fat either, avocados, olive oil, all nuts, nut butters, coconut oil, things like that. I mean, we want to keep that joint integrity there too. And carbohydrates, because carbs are going to fuel us and give us the energy. But as you know, it's the right carb.
Yeah, that's one thing I try to impress upon my clients too, is that carbs. I think there's a lot of really great whole foods that are carbs. And although I don't always push potatoes, and I definitely don't push white potatoes or red potatoes, but if somebody really loves potatoes, if that's the worst thing that they're actually having in their diet, at least that's a real food. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. But a sweet potato, that's the perfect example of getting some great carbs if you really need some. It's not just chips and potatoes and pastries and cookies and pizza and muffins and bagels. That's a different kind of carb, and those will give you a different kind of energy.
And, most times it's fixing the nutrition piece first. And I'll tell clients, look, if you can walk every day for 20 to 30 minutes, like walk 15 minutes down your street and then walk 15 minutes back home, that'll give you a 30-minute walk. You get outside, you get air, you get sunlight. It's all those good things that make you feel better. But you've got to, you need to fuel your body, because it's kind of not fair to push really hard and not feed it all day. And people will go home and then they really overeat at night, which causes a problem. So I'm really big on feeding people consistently throughout the day so that their metabolism their blood sugar stays nice and level. And their body knows, really teaching their body again, take food in, use it as fuel, not store it as fat. First, when they're not eating and then they eat sporadically, they're going to hold on to all that. Or if they're eating at night and they're just chowing down because they're so hungry that they're going to hold that while they go to sleep. Or loading up on caffeine during the day too, which kills their appetite, gives them that false energy, but it also shuts off their appetite and it dehydrates them. So it's water intake, it's nutrients, and then just in getting some kind of movement. And then once we kind of master that piece of it a little bit, then that's when I like to get strength training in there, because that is another thing that all women need to be doing, strength training, hands down. The other modalities are great, from mobility and stretching. I believe in yoga and Pilates and those modalities, but you really need to stress the bones and stress the muscles so that that integrity stays there as we age.
Yeah, and things, of course, That, of course, is going to help you build muscle as well when you eat more protein. And I try to really impress that upon my clients to make sure that they're getting enough protein and fiber, because those also help fill you up too. And you're not going to be as hungry. You're going to crowd out some of the other processed foods maybe that you eat that aren't going to serve your body as well. So especially when you eat enough protein, and I can say I'm guilty of this. I don't think, as much as I should. Some days are okay, but yeah, every day I'm not eating as much as I should. And unfortunately, I try to also impress upon my clients that you don't want to fall into that trap, because, once you start into that trap, it kind of reminds me of a spinning drain, where it just kind of, the water goes down, and the closer you get, the faster it pulls you. And so, yeah, I really want you, or my clients, when I talk with them, to not fall into that trap, because, as we get older, people just say, oh, well, I just don't eat as much. And once you start down that swirling drain, it's going to cause the ripple effect in your health, and which is going to then stem over into every aspect of your life.
Being prepared helps too. I teach my clients that they have to be prepared. If they know, if they're working in an office, they have a high profile job and they're really busy, keep protein powder at your desk. So if you're not going to be able to eat before you're going into a 2-hour meeting, add some water. You can throw a little bit of creatine in it, or even a scoop of greens powder in it, shake it up, drink that. At least you're giving your body something to work with, so you don't get low blood sugar, and then your brain doesn't function properly when you're like that. So just little things that they can have with them, so they can stay fueled throughout the day. But I know it happens to me too. I have days when I don't drink all. People ask me, how can you drink that much water? How do you get your water intake in? I have a hard time drinking water. I don't like the taste of water. I don't really like, what can I put in it to flavor it? And I'm like, no, you need to learn how to drink clear water, because your body needs that. You can use flavored seltzers. That does count as fluid intake, but I really want you to get into the habit of drinking clear water. So I'll fill up my clean canteens and line them up on my counter. And I know I got to knock down 2 or 3 of them for the day, and then I know I'm good. But sometimes I don't hit it. Today might be one of those days, but if I start chugging now, I'll be up all night using the bathroom. But, it's just setting yourself up so that like, even when they go to parties or functions or weddings, I always tell them, let's talk about where you're going, what restaurant are you going to, let's make your plan. So when you get there, you're prepared. And people don't mess up when they're prepared. Like, I'll have clients come out and go, that was great. I went to the wedding. I had I had my dinner. I had a little piece of cake or a small dessert or 1 glass of wine. I feel great. I had a good time. And, I actually lost some weight this week or whatever. But so you could still live. That's the thing. You can still live, but you can't do that all the time. Like, you really need to have a plan, be prepared. And then, you can let your hair down once in a while. But for the most part, you need to be on point.
Well, and I know that you mentioned muscle already, so why don't we dive into that? So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about why maintaining muscle mass is so important as we age? Because I don't think enough people really pay attention to it, and they really do need to pay attention to muscle mass.
It's great. And, I come from a background from competing and lifting weights, and I love to work out. My day is not complete if I don't get into the gym for an hour and get my weight training in. But for women, our muscle mass is so important, because that's what's going to carry us through life. And I like to always remind people, you see elderly people and they're either hunched over or they're on a walker or someone's helping them. And, at that point, it's hard. Obviously, they're probably not going to make any changes at that point. But while we're here in this 40, 50, 60 something space, we could be doing weight training to keep those legs strong, because those legs are going to carry us, and keeps our bones strong also, so that as we age, we have less issues with osteoporosis, we have less sarcopenia, which is muscle wasting disease, but that we can hold ourselves upright and walk and be 80 something, and maybe you're getting down on the floor with grandkids, or you can still get down and put your shoes on. the little things that we don't think about now that could become an issue later on if we're not moving and strength training and just keeping your hips strong, your legs, quads, hamstrings, glutes. You need that to hold you up. So I am a huge advocate of getting women into the gym and lifting. And you probably hear this too, but women will say, I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to get big. I don't want to have big muscles. And I'm like, you know what? That's not going to happen. I'm like, that would take a really long time, and you might have to use some performance enhancing drugs to get that kind of. You're not going to become a bodybuilder. You're not going to look like a man. But what you will do is build a strong metabolism, because your muscles, are always at work. Even when you decide to take a rest day and you want to sit and watch Netflix for the day, your muscles, you'll find that you'll get consistent. You'll be hungry at the times that you should be hungry at, even on your rest day, because your muscles are constantly churning and burning fuel. So that's the other thing too. It really helps with weight loss. It keeps your body looking strong, and it keeps your integrity there.
Yeah, and one of the things that one of my favorite doctors that I love to follow, her name is Dr. Tina Moore. She's hilarious, by the way. She has this saying that's perfectly fitting, and that she says that muscle is the mop. And so she says that because it like soaks up all the excess blood sugars that you have. So when you have muscle on your body, instead of leaving all the blood sugar floating around in your bloodstream, it's definitely going to help you have stable blood sugars. And you don't even have to have diabetes. You shouldn't just have to have diabetes to care about your blood sugar levels. Which of course it's definitely going to help with your blood sugar or diabetes if you have it. But I just really like that phrase, and I use it with my clients because, like I said, it perfectly fits. And I think people can kind of understand, oh, you want to mop something up. And so when she says that muscle is the mop and it soaks up all the blood sugars, I think that kind of gives it a little understanding for people that they can really to grasp hold of.
Absolutely, and like I said, if you want to have, people that know me well know I love carrot cake, and I haven't had a good piece. I haven't had a good piece in a really long time, but when I do have it, I enjoy it.
And I'm hoping that people realize too that I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I do work out 4 times a week, but personally, I do not like working out. But I do it because not just for my brain health, but for my body's health, because I do not want to be stuck. When I'm 80, which I plan on actually living to about 120-ish, I want to be able to walk myself. I want to be able to lift a gallon of milk out of my own refrigerator. I want to be able to move a box if I want to move a box. I don't plan on moving furniture, but worst case scenario, I want to be able to function as I am now for the most part. I want to be able to walk up and down stairs, and you need muscle and you need stability to do all of those things. And so that's what my goal is. And that's basically why I do it and why I go to the gym 4 times a week, because it's going to help me not just now, but it's going to help me when I'm 90 and 100 and 120.
The thing too is that it really helps with the mental health aspect too, because everybody's dealing with so much stress, chronic stress, and that is just so taxing on our overall health. Chronic stress just causes so many different types of illnesses that we can avoid. And when you're in the gym, that euphoric feeling that you get, how many times have you dragged yourself into the gym and you're like, I really don't feel like doing this today. But I never walk out. I might walk in saying that sometimes, but I never walk out going, damn, I wish I didn't work out today. I always feel so much better when I come out. My mood is better. I have, more spring in my step. I'm happier. It feels really good. And a lot of people need that, especially in today's world. You got to have somewhere where you can blow off some steam. So, whether it's strength training or it's, my dad has been an avid cyclist since I can remember, since I was little. He's 83 and he still rides his bike every day. He's climbing up hills and doing stuff. But it's whatever gets you excited, like if it's dancing, whatever it is, but you need to do those things because it's just going to give you a different perspective. And I think it's just going to help keep your central nervous system calm, because we all get stressed out, but do you stay in that space, or do you have ways to change your mindset change your thought process so that your central nervous system can calm down and you can recover a little bit and stay logical so you can think about real solutions to things versus trying to handle something when you're emotional, and that never works.
So yeah, and literally just 2 days ago, we had a little bit of snow outside when we're recording this. And so I went outside and I stepped down one step and then my foot slipped. And lately, over the last couple months, 2 months, I'd really been working on my stability and balancing at the gym as well as at home. But because growing up, I used to be a gymnast. Of course, I wasn't as good as my sister, but yeah, we used to balance on that little balance beam. And we used to do somersaults and cartwheels and, just standing there balancing. And I think when you're younger, you take things like that for granted. So when I just recently started practicing, I was like, oh my goodness, I really wasn't as stable as I thought I was. And so literally 2 days ago, when I slipped down my steps, I think I did not get injured as much from my fall because of the way I've been practicing my balancing. So I think it would have been a lot worse had I not been practicing some of that balancing, which is so critical.
Point that you bring up too is that if you do sustain a fall or an injury or something, and your body is more primed because you've been strength training or you've been doing mobility work, and your bones are strong. You might get a little bit banged up, but your body is in much better position to heal itself, and you're not going to crack a hip or break an arm or something. Like your body will be more structurally sound to absorb it. Which, not to say that you might still not get a little bit injured, but you'll be in a better situation to heal faster because you're eating your nutrients, you're giving your body the protein that it needs to help heal any wounds or injuries or broken bones. So that there's a lot to be said for that, because we all know people that are elderly that trip or fall and then they crack their hip breaks. And then that's pretty much it for them, and it's sad. That's when life starts to deteriorate, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I think our generation is smart now and knows that we need to do those things. Like my mom will be 80 soon, and her generation, they didn't do that. Women didn't go to the gym, they didn't exercise. I mean, they got married and had families, and that's pretty much it. But now I think later generations realize that you've got to be doing, there was jazzercise. And I remember when I was younger doing, aerobics with wearing my high top Reeboks and my leg warmers, going to gym class to do step aerobics or whatever it was at the time. But I loved all that stuff. It was fun.
Yeah, it was good.
So, that I really preach that to women, because a lot of women aren't strength training and they don't know where to start, and they're a little bit nervous. So I think it's definitely, you really got to eat well, do nutrition. I mean, eat well, do your strength training, and then add in other things like yoga is great for mindset and calming down and stretching and mobility and joint integrity. I think that's a good piece of it also.
I partnered with a girl that I went to school with. She created a fitness app where it's called Wellia, and I'll put a link in the show notes for people because she created this app, and it's fantastic. And every month you get new exercises that are downloaded straight to the app. And it's there's a spot where if you sign up and register, you can either work out at home and lift these weights, or you can work out at the gym. Like sometimes people go to the gym and they just don't know what to do. Or sometimes people totally know what to do, and that's fine. And you just are like, okay, I'm so bored with my same routines. I need a little help. This is like a great fix for that. Or the same if you're at home too, you just don't know what to do, or you don't have the confidence, or you're tired of doing the same things. This will give you different things every day. And like I said, it's downloaded straight to your phone. Of course, it's also going to ask that you walk every day as well. It's not focusing on the steps, but they definitely want you to get out and walk. And she created a whole section that's just for my Forgiven Nutritionist followers. So I will put that link in the show notes, and it's less than like $19 a month if you go with the monthly version, or it's less than $99 for the whole year if you buy the whole year. So it's like, why not buy the whole year? But nonetheless, yeah. So since that was going to be one of my next questions too, after exercise, is what kinds of lifestyle factors aside from exercise can support muscle building during aging? Because, I know that yoga I started doing last year and a little bit more this year as well. And I incorporate some of those moves every time I go to the gym. Because like I said, it happens to help with stability and balance, which is great. But you mentioned dancing before. So what's another great way that people can incorporate that?
I work with someone once a week, and I go and I have mobility work. I do mobility work. I mean, he's a personal trainer, but it's great because I go on Tuesdays at 12, and we wrap bands around the squat cage, squat rack, and I'll do different types of flossing and hip pulls and different kind of hip flexor movements and glute movements, pigeon stretches with a band, clamshells, a lot of those kind of movements. And that stuff is great too for mobility because you keep all your ligaments and tendons strong and tight that support everything. So I love doing mobility work with bands too. That is a great way to just make sure the joint integrity stays there because we get stiff. A lot of people have jobs where they sit all day long, and using a foam roller is another way good to just to keep that fascia smooth and get the blood flow through the muscles. I think doing deep tissue work is good too. There's many different modalities, whether you just want like a hands-on deep tissue, and there's cupping, and there's Grafton, and there's just a lot of different ways that you can have someone manipulate your body too that you can't do on your own. So I like tissue work. Deep tissue work is very important.
Infrared sauna recently for the first time, and I cannot believe I've never experienced that before. And oh my gosh, it is so nice. Yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I am addicted, and I told my husband, and I got him to go with me, and he said, you'll be over in no time. And I said, well, that may be true. But for right now, I'm loving it, and I can't promote it enough. There's so many good studies about it, but I literally left there feeling no negativity whatsoever. Of course, I sweat in there like crazy, and I did rub my lymphatics. If you are not familiar with the lymphatic system, watch episode 1 of my podcast where you rub the big 6. But I did rub my lymphatics before I went in. So yeah, that definitely helped me sweat a lot more and get the toxins out. And I just felt fantastic.
What's great too is for talking about lymphatic system and drainage and is jumping. Think about like when we were little kids, right? We watch little kids, they run and jump and sprint and they do all that all the time. And as we get older, we do less and less and less of that. But even if you just grab a jump rope, even if you jump rope a little bit every day, that jumping, or some people have the little trampolines and you can do that. Things like that. Even if you set up a low like step board, and just do like easy jump ups or step ups, jump to the side. But all that makes a difference too, because we don't move our bodies like that much anymore for the most part. I know I do it. I do it now too. I'll do like box jumps on a medium box, or I'll use a bench. I'll jump on a bench and do a few sets of 10 jumps, or I'll hit the jump rope. Things like that too definitely make a difference because your body needs to, still be able to move side to side or jump or move or run or sprint. So those things are important too.
So I know that we touched on a lot of things about exercise, and one thing we didn't really talk about is how it can definitely help our adrenals and our whole body function better, which is of course going to help the whole menopause process go a little bit smoother, no matter what age we are. So that's hopefully another good tip or takeaway that people can really get from when we're talking about exercise and how that can help with any of the symptoms that we're experiencing.
A doctor talked about perimenopause, and I love, she said based on how you arrive to perimenopause is pretty much going to determine how you go through it. So, and she just meant that if you come into perimenopause, and you've got some weight to lose, and you haven't been exercising, and you're a little more sedentary, and you don't eat so well, that you're probably going to have a harder time with some of the symptoms, maybe the flashing or the night sweats, not sleeping well, just not, feeling achy, stiff. And then, but she said, if you're in decent shape coming into perimenopause and, you're exercising and maybe taking some supplements, eating pretty well and sleeping well and drinking water, that you'll definitely have a much better time going through it. And I believe there's a lot of credibility to that. And, even just using myself as an example of always weight training and trying to eat well. When I grew up, my dad, his profession was a chemist. He worked in a lab. And back then he was working on artificial sweeteners. And I think saccharin was one of them, which I know I'm dating myself, but he would never we never got to have sugar. We didn't have certain foods in the house. We didn't have food dyes like cereals, like Fruit Loops was my brother's favorite, but he wasn't allowed to eat it, kind of thing. Like we always ate fruits, vegetables, good proteins. Like he was ahead of his time, but he knew because he worked in a lab and he worked on red dye number 40 and all these things that he knew what he knew what it would do to the human body. And so it's funny how I sort of lost my train of thought on this, but it's interesting how, those things really affect us. And it's just good to stay away from those things.
Especially nowadays, you mentioned the red dye. There's so much research that is totally out there, and how it can affect, not just children, but adults also, but especially children, because their brains and their bodies are still so young and their brains are forming still. And, it causes ADD and ADHD. And I remember years ago, my mom mentioning how every time she ate red licorice, she would get heart palpitations. And as soon as she stopped eating red licorice, there were no heart palpitations. And then we'd get red licorice and she would get the heart palpitations again. So, even then you can be your own little scientist and perform experiments like that and see how you feel when you remove some of these foods. And so definitely stay away from red dye. Just saying.
These kids are eating now too. It's just riddled with colors and sugars and all kinds of things. And they eat this stuff all day long. And it's unfortunate. It really is.
Nutrients or supplements that you like to recommend to women as they age?
I love using evening primrose oil with women, whether they're still cycling. When my daughter started getting her period, I put her on primrose oil. It's great for hormonal balance. It's great for anxiety. It's great for our skin. They used it for wound healing, I think, way back when in the day, but it's been shown to be a great supplement for women, especially in our hormonal imbalance time period, like we are in our 40s and 50s and beyond. I love using, I have most of my clients using a teaspoon of creatine a day, because it's just been not only for the muscle mass and retaining muscle, building muscle, but all the studies they've done now showing how it helps with cognitive health. So it really helps women, just because we're so much more susceptible to dementia and Alzheimer's as we go through our hormonal imbalances, which is a reason why I'm a huge advocate of hormone replacement therapy, but maybe that's another podcast. But creatine is great for cognitive health for women and also for the muscle piece. And I also do love to use DHEA with women. But I will say this ahead of that, I like my clients to do their blood work, and I like when they have doctors that are willing to test their hormone levels so that we can see where they're at, and then we can come up with the right supplements for them based on, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, full thyroid, DHEA. If we can see where those levels are, then it really helps with adding certain supplements in.
A specific creatine powder that you like, or a brand that you like?
I use creatine monohydrate, just a plain old white creatine. It doesn't have any bells and whistles in it. You don't need to spend a ton of money on it. There are some great brands out there. There's Metagenics, there's Thorne, there's Pure Encapsulation, there's Now. I think I have a tub in my cabinet. I bought it at the vitamin shop. It's just a big old tub of creatine monohydrate. And all you need is a teaspoon, just a level teaspoon. You can put it in a protein shake. You don't even know it's there. Or if someone uses branched chain amino acids to drink while they work out, sometimes I'll put it in there. But it's a great supplement for women. And, again, they get afraid that they're going to get big and bulky. But ladies, I'm telling you, that is not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. I go 4 times a week. I'm definitely not big and bulky, so you definitely don't have to worry about that or have a lot of fear of going that. And I think that people think that when they eat protein that it's going to help them get big and bulky, but it really does not. And for me, eating the protein, it really helped me trim down, I think, honestly.
Definitely an important nutrient for women. And like we talked about in the very beginning, it's definitely one of those nutrients that women just are definitely not eating enough of. I think for the most part, women in our demographic just aren't eating enough, period. But it's those moments when they do sit down and eat a lot of food at one time, that's when they start to get into trouble and they have a hard time balancing their weight or their blood sugar because they're not consistent. So
the end of every episode, I always like to ask my guest for their don't miss this moment. It would be that one key thing that they would want the listeners to really pick up on and remember from the whole conversation today. So what would your don't miss this moment be?
This moment would be making sure that, like we just said, that women are eating at least fueling 4 times a day. I think that's extremely important. And making sure when they look at their plate, they can identify their protein source, their carb source, and their fat source, and know what it is and make sure. I mean, the rule of thumb, ladies, is if you don't have a food scale, but it's usually the size of the palm of your hand is a serving of protein, but you can probably even go a little bit more than that, I would say. And if you're an active woman, you can definitely go more than that.
So where can my listeners find you, follow you, anything?
Go to my Instagram, which is at Linda Stevens Fit, F-I-T. I spell my last name with a P-H, so it's Linda Stevens, S-T-E-P-H-E-N-S, F-I-T on Instagram. Or you can go to my website, which is lindamstevens.com. And then you can easily schedule a consult if someone wants to talk more about what's going on with them.
Thank you very much for joining me today. Hopefully people get some good takeaways from it in our conversation today. So thank you again.
So we got to keep spreading the word.
If you are looking for a trustworthy place to choose all of your supplements, FullScript has 285 different brands to choose from. They did the work for you to check quality standards for all the supplements they carry. These standards are important because they help to ensure a product is safe, effective, and accurately labeled. FullScript uses third-party companies to provide unbiased assurance that certain quality criteria are met when they add a company or product to their inventory. When you set up an account with FullScript, use my link and you'll always get 15% off your supplements. If you want to continue learning and hearing all things nutrition for your mind, body, and soul, click like, subscribe, or favorite me on whatever podcast platform you use, or you can find me at ForgivenNutritionist.com. This podcast was designed to educate, inspire, and empower you to achieve your health and wellness goals. It is not meant to diagnose or treat any illness or medical condition or take the place of any treatments from your current healthcare providers.